Imagine, if you will, a man living two completely distinct lives. In one life, he is a quiet, bespectacled computer operator in 1970s London.
Right.
He spends his days in this deafeningly loud, air-conditioned room, logging data for a bank, worrying about making rent, going home to his wife and young child.
And this man is Declan Patrick MacManus.
Exactly. But then there's this other life.
And in the other life, he is a figure who seems to have been engineered in a laboratory specifically to start fights.
Yeah.
He operates under a name that feels like a deliberate provocation, a name that hijacked the king of rock and roll and paired it with a vibe that was, I don't know, equal parts gangster and stand-up comic.
And that man is Elvis Costello.
That's him.
It is a massive dichotomy. Usually when we talk about rock stars on this show, we focus on the star part.
Sure, the excess, the stadiums.
We talk about the private jets, the sold-out stadiums, the excess. But today, we aren't just doing a greatest hits run-through. We have a very specific mission.
We do. Our goal for this deep dive is to deconstruct the architecture of a career that, by all conventional logic, really shouldn't have worked.
How so?
Well, we're looking at how a guy who looked more like a confused librarian or, I don't know, a disgruntled accountant managed to bridge the gap between the raw, spit-flying energy of 1977 punk rock and the sophisticated, complex songwriting of Tin Pan Alley.
And just to pause there for a second, Tin Pan Alley, that's a term we hear a lot, but let's just ground it for a second.
Yeah.
We're talking about that golden era of American songwriting, early 20th century, right?
Exactly. It refers to the collection of music publishers and songwriters in New York City who just dominated pop music before rock and roll came along.
So people like Gershwin.
We're talking about George Gershwin, Irving Berlin, Cole Porter. The music was structured, it was melodic, and lyrically it was incredibly witty.
Which is a far cry from the three-chord thrash of the Sex Pistols.
A million miles away. And yet our subject today, Elvis Costello, somehow embodies both of those worlds simultaneously.
That is the central tension we're exploring. How does one man go from sharing a stage with The Clash to writing a ballet score?
Or how do you pivot from being the angry young man to collaborating with Burt Bacharach? It's wild.
To get to the bottom of this, we are pulling from a massive stack of sources today. We have definitive biographies, session notes from the recording studios, decades of interviews, and crucially, his own incredibly dense and fascinating memoir, Unfaithful Music and Disappearing Ink.
That memoir is a goldmine. It's not your typical sex, drugs, and rock and roll tell-all.
No, not at all.
It's more like a treatise on musicology written by someone who just happened to be famous.
And I have to say, the sheer volume of material here is staggering. We're talking about a guy who claimed to have written hundreds of songs before his first album even dropped.
Not dozens, hundreds.
Hundreds.
And that volume is your first clue to understanding him. As we work through this, I want you to keep an eye out for the why.
The motivation behind it all.
Yeah, why the constant name changes, why the obsession with wordplay, and why the refusal to stay in one musical lane. It's not just restlessness, it's a fundamental philosophy about what music is.
So let's start at the source.
Yeah.
To understand the why, we have to go back to the who.
Back to Declan MacManus.
Declan MacManus. And specifically, the house he grew up in. Because in the MacManus household, music wasn't a hobby, was it?
Far from it. In the MacManus house, music was a trade. It was a job.
It was blue-collar work.
Exactly, just like plumbing or carpentry. His father, Ross MacManus, was a professional musician. He was a trumpet player and a vocalist with the Joe Loss Orchestra.
Now, for those who might not be up on their mid-century British band leaders, the Joe Loss Orchestra wasn't just some local garage band.
Oh, no.
This was a massive institution.
Huge. They were one of the most popular big bands of the era in Britain. But more importantly for our story, they had a residency on the radio. They had a weekly show where they had to play the hits of the day.
So they were essentially a human jukebox,
Right.
a live Spotify playlist.
Precisely. They were the Spotify of their time. If the Beatles had a new hit on Monday, Ross MacManus had to learn it by Wednesday to sing it on the air by Friday.
Which meant he was bringing home the source material.
So Ross would come home on a Tuesday with a stack of demo records, acetate discs of the current top 40. Motown tracks, Mersey Beat, whatever was charting.
Which means young Declan is sitting there getting early, exclusive access to the best pop music in the world. But he's not just listening to it like a fan, is he?
No, and this is the crucial distinction. He's not sitting there mesmerized by the magic of the Beatles. He is watching his father dissect these songs for work.
Okay.
He's watching him figure out the chord changes, the vocal phrasing, the structure. He's seeing the mechanics of how a hit song is built.
That it completely changes your relationship with art. It demystifies it. It turns it from magic into engineering.
It creates a sense of detachment that served him so well. He said later, "That's why I know so many songs." He learned that a song is something you construct, not just something that falls out of the sky.
It's a craft.
It's a craft. And there's a delightful, almost bizarre detail in the notes that perfectly illustrates this working musician mentality, the secret lemonade drinker.
I was hoping we'd get to this. This is a legendary piece of trivia that I feel like every Costello fan knows, but the casual listener will be shocked by.
It really is a gem. So in 1973, Ross McManus got a gig to sing a jingle for R. White's Lemonade.
A huge ad in the UK at the time.
It became a cult classic ad, a guy in pajamas sneaking downstairs in the middle of the night to drink lemonade. Rum is singing the lead vocal, but if you listen very closely to the backing vocals,
That high-pitched, I'm a secret lemonade drinker.
that backing voice is a young Elvis Costello, or rather Declan McManus.
No way.
He was dragged along to the studio by his dad to do the gig. It wasn't art. It wasn't about expressing his soul.
It was a paycheck.
It was a paycheck. It's a perfect example of that trade mentality. You show up, you sing the jingle, you get paid.
And it wasn't just his dad. His mom, Lillian, was also in the business, but from the retail side.
Yes, Lillian managed the record department at Selfridges, a big department store. She had what they call an insider's ear.
So she knew it was good.
She was the one curating the sounds in the house, bringing home jazz records, encouraging his curiosity. There's a story that she actually predicted his career before he was born simply because the environment was so saturated with music.
So you have the father providing the technical discipline, the how-to, and the mother providing the access and the encouragement.
And going back even further, his grandfather, Pat MacManus, was an orphan who learned trumpet in the Army and played on the White Star Line cruise ships.
The Titanic's cruise line.
The very same. So for Declan, picking up a guitar wasn't an act of rebellion against his parents, which is the standard rock star trope.
Right, the I'm going to show them narrative.
For him, it was joining the family business.
Which brings us to the computer operator legend. This is one of those rock myths that needs a bit of busting, or at least some context. You always hear the story. Elvis Costello was just a boring office drone, a computer operator, and then poof, he's a rock star. But the reality is a little more nuanced, right?
It is. He absolutely worked as a computer operator. He worked at Midland Bank in Bootle and later at the Elizabeth Arden Cosmetics Factory.
Cosmetics factory. Seriously.
Seriously. But we have to contextualize what computer operator meant in the early 1970s.
We're not talking about a guy sitting at a sweet desk with a MacBook sipping a latte in a WeWork.
Not at all. We are talking about noisy, air-conditioned rooms housing massive mainframe computers.
Okay.
The IBM 360s. These were room-sized machines that used giant reels of magnetic tape and punch cards.
Oh, wow. Punch cards.
These machines were deafeningly loud. The hum of the cooling fans, the clatter of the card readers, the spinning of the tape drives.
It's an industrial environment. It's closer to working in a factory than an office.
Completely industrial. And here's the key insight that connects his job to his music. These computers were slow.
Right.
You would load a deck of punch cards, hit run, and then you had to wait. There was significant lag time while the machine processed the data.
You can't really chat with your coworkers because of all that noise.
Exactly. So you have a young man full of creative energy, standing in a loud, rhythmic environment with 10 or 15-minute bursts of free time where he has to look busy that has nothing to do.
So what did he do?
He wrote songs in his head.
He's getting paid by the bank to write watching the detectives inside his own brain.
Essentially, yes. And if you look at his early lyrical style, it's very staccato. Lots of wordplay, rapid-fire images.
Yeah, you can hear that.
Some musicologists argue that the rhythm of those noisy printers and the isolation of that computer room actually influenced the cadence of his writing. He wasn't noodling on a guitar in a bedroom. He was constructing verses to the rhythm of a machine.
That is fascinating. It's industrial music before industrial was a genre. And he kept these jobs for a long time, right?
Yeah.
He didn't quit the moment he wrote a good song.
No, he was risk-averse. He had a wife and a child. He kept his job at the Elizabeth Arden factory until just weeks before his first album, My Aim Is True, was released.
That's incredible.
He wasn't an amateur dabbling. He was a prolific writer masquerading as a bank clerk.
But he was trying to get bands going during this time. He had a folk duo called Rusty.
With Alan Mays, they played schools, folk clubs, very much in that kind of singer-songwriter mold.
Okay.
And later he formed Flip City, which was a pub rock band.
Pub rock is a term we should probably define for the listener. It's very specific to the UK in the mid-70s, isn't it?
It is, and it's important. Pub rock was a reaction against the bloated prog rock of the era, you know, the 20-minute drum solos, the capes, the fantasy lyrics about wizards.
Right, all the excess.
Pub rock was back to basics. R&B, rock and roll, played in small bars. It was sweaty, simple, and fun. Bands like Dr. Feelgood.
So Flip City is playing these pubs, trying to get people to dance while they drink their pints.
They were. And they were actually playing early versions of songs that would become Costello hits, like Miracle Man and Radio Radio.
Oh, really? That early?
Yeah, but they were playing them loosely. They weren't going anywhere fast. Declan realized that to break out, he needed a change. He needed a vehicle.
Enter Stiff Records. Jake Riviera and Dave Robinson. These guys were the ultimate disruptors of the London music scene.
Absolutely.
They weren't just record executives, they were provocateurs.
You were chaos agents. They looked at Declan MacManus, this slightly chubby guy with glasses and a desperate intensity, and they saw something.
But not the name.
No, they knew Declan MacManus wasn't a name that was going to sell records to teenagers.
So they give him the name, Elvis.
It was audacious. In 1977, Elvis Presley was still alive, though he was in decline. He was the king.
You don't just take that name.
Taking that name was considered sacrilege to some people. It was like calling yourself Jesus Jones. But to Stiff Records, it was just a shock tactic. It was a way to make people look twice at a poster.
And Costello didn't care about the comparison. He didn't feel weird about stepping on the king's toes.
He really didn't. To him, names were just costumes. His dad used a stage name day Costello for some of his work, so he took the Elvis from Presley to shock people and the Costello from his dad to ground it.
A perfect combination of blasphemy and tradition.
You could say that, but then Stiff did something else. They crafted the look.
The glasses. The iconic black-framed spectacles.
He actually needed glasses to see. He wore rimless ones usually. But Jake Riviera took him out and bought him those heavy, black-framed Buddy Holly glasses.
Ah, so that was a deliberate choice.
Oh, completely. They cut his hair short, they put him in ill-fitting suits, emphasizing a sort of knock-kneed awkwardness.
It was a very specific aesthetic.
Yeah.
Buddy Holly on acid. It was nerdy, but it was aggressive.
It was weaponized nerdiness. It said, I might look like a computer operator, but I am smarter than you, and I am angrier than you.
It was the perfect counter-programming to the sex symbols of the 70s like Robert Plant or Peter Frampton. So now we have the name, we have the look, and we have the songs written on the bank's dime. It's 1977. We get the debut album, My Aim Is True.
A landmark record. And the recording process is a marvel of efficiency. It was recorded in 6 4-hour sessions.
6 4-hour sessions. That's 24 hours total studio time.
For the whole album.
That is absurdly fast. Most bands spend 24 hours just getting the drum sound right.
It cost about £1,000 to make. And remember, he's calling in sick to the factory to do this.
Incredible.
But here is a detail that often trips people up. The backing band on My Aim Is True is not the Attractions.
Right. The famous backing band comes later. So who are these guys playing on the debut?
It was a band called Clover. And get this, they were an American country rock band from California.
Wait, what? California country rockers playing on a British new wave punk album? That makes no sense.
It was an accident of history. They were in London, Stiff Records had access to them, and they needed a band. This is why, if you listen to My Aim Is True carefully, it has a slightly different feel than his later stuff.
How so?
Listen to the guitar on Allison. It's jangly, it's soulful, it's not punk. It has that West Coast laid-back proficiency.
But there is one track on the album where the sound shifts.
Yeah.
Watching the Detectives.
That is the pivot point. He recorded that separately. He said that was the first time he felt he was making a record rather than just capturing a song.
And what was different about it?
It was heavily influenced by The Clash's debut album, which he had just heard, and fascinatingly by Bernard Herrmann's film scores.
Bernard Herrmann, the guy who did the music for Psycho and Vertigo.
The master of tension. Costello wanted that cinematic creepiness. You can hear it in the reggae-influenced bass line and that jarring staccato organ.
And the lyrics are so dark.
It's a song about watching someone watch violence on TV. It's meta, it's dark, and it was the sign of things to come.
So the album comes out, the critics love it, but now he has to tour. And Clover, the California Country Boys, go home.
Right. He needs a band that can match his intensity. He needs the attractions.
And he didn't just want a backing band. He wanted a weapon.
He held auditions and found 3 musicians who would define his sound for the next decade.
Well, let's break down this lineup because their chemistry is essential to understanding why Costello worked.
First, you have Steve Neve on keyboards. He was a 19-year-old student at the Royal College of Music.
Classically trained.
Yeah, and he hadn't really played in a rock band. He brought this incredibly ornate, almost carnival-esque organ sound. He could go from playing a fairground waltz to a piercing new wave riff in seconds.
Then Bruce Thomas on bass.
The experienced pro. He had played with bands like Sutherland Brothers and Quiver. He played melodic bass lines. He wasn't just thumping the root note.
He was playing counter melodies.
That danced around the vocals. It was brilliant.
And Pete Thomas on drums.
Who Elvis and many critics have called the best rock drummer in the world. Pete Thomas played with a ferocity that was frightening. He could play fast, but he could swing.
Oh, you put those 3 together with Costello's rhythm guitar?
And you got a chemical reaction, a controlled explosion.
This leads us into the golden run. 1978's This Year's Model and 1979's Armed Forces. This year's model is just relentless energy.
It's sonic assault. Costello described it as a ghost version of the Rolling Stones' Aftermath.
What does that mean, a ghost version?
He wanted it stripped down, no reverb, no production tricks, just the band in a room, playing hard, raw and direct.
This is where we get Pump It Up.
An absolute anthem. And the story behind it is so perfectly Elvis. He wrote it on a fire escape step in Newcastle. He was on the Stiff Live Stiffs tour, which was this debauched, alcohol-fueled traveling circus.
So he's seeing all this bad behavior, rock and roll excess.
He's watching everyone indulge in what he called idiotic rock and roll decadence, and he writes this thumping, sarcastic song about it. Pump it up until you can feel it.
It sounds like a party song.
But it's actually a critique of the party. It's a sneer set to a beat.
And then Armed Forces in 1979, the sound changes again. It gets shinier, more polished.
Shinier, but also colder. The working title was Emotional Fascism, which tells you everything you need to know about the themes.
Emotional fascism. Wow.
He's comparing personal relationships to political control, but musically, they were listening to ABA.
ABA. The Swedish pop superstars. I would not have guessed that.
Absolutely. And Kraftwerk, the German electronic pioneers. Also, David Bowie's Berlin albums. Costello was obsessed with the production value of ABBA.
You can hear it now that you say it.
Listen to the piano lines in Oliver's Army. It's pure, glittering pop. It bounces.
And ironically, Oliver's Army became his biggest selling UK single. It sold over 500,000 copies.
Which is wild because the lyrics are about the troubles in Northern Ireland and the exploitation of working-class soldiers. He was inspired by seeing British soldiers in Belfast.
So you have this incredibly catchy ABBA-esque melody masking a song about geopolitical conflict and imperialism.
That is the Costello trademark, sugar-coated poison pills. You're humming along and then you realize you're singing about mercenaries.
He tricks you into listening to the message. Now, we can't talk about this era without talking about the moment America met Elvis Costello, Saturday Night Live, December 1977.
Legendary. So the Sex Pistols were supposed to perform, but they couldn't get visas in time.
Right, they were too controversial.
SNL needs a replacement. They call Columbia Records, and they get Elvis Costello.
He's the backup punk.
Right. And the label explicitly tells him, play Less Than Zero. It was a song from his first album.
But there was a problem with Less Than Zero for an American audience, wasn't there?
Huge problem. The song is about Oswald Mosley, a British fascist leader from the 1930s. Americans had no idea who that was.
He would have just gone over everyone's heads.
Costello knew it would land flat. He wanted to play Radio Radio, a new song that was a biting attack on corporate media control and censorship.
A song that bites the hand that feeds it, essentially.
But the SNL producers, including Lorne Michaels, said absolutely not. They forbade it.
So showtime comes.
The band starts playing Less Than Zero. They get a few bars in.
And then he does the thing.
He turns to the band, slashes his hand across his throat, and stops them. The studio goes silent.
I can't imagine the panic in the control room.
He walks up to the mic and says, "I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, there's no reason to do this song here." And he screams, "Radio, radio!" And the band launches into it.
Live on national television.
You have to understand the pressure of live TV. The control room must have been an absolute chaos. Lorne Michaels was furious. Costello was flipping the bird to the entire network infrastructure.
In the fallout.
He was banned from SNL for over a decade. He didn't come back until 1989.
Wow.
It killed his relationship with the show, but it made his career. It cemented his image as the guy who couldn't be controlled, the punk who wouldn't listen to the suits.
It's such a heroic moment in rock history.
Mm-hmm.
But as we move into 1979, that rebellious energy takes a very dark, very ugly turn. We have to talk about the crash.
We do. This is the turning point of the deep dive. The Columbus incident.
This was in Ohio, March 1979.
Right. He's on a high-stress U.S. tour. He's drinking heavily. He's exhausted. And he ends up in a Holiday Inn bar in Columbus.
Okay.
Also in the bar are members of Stephen Stills' band, Stephen Stills from Crosby, Stills and Nash.
So you have the old guard, American rockers, and the new ways, British punk, oil and water.
And it turns into an argument. Bonnie Bramlett, a backing singer, is there. They are arguing about music, about America versus England. And Costello, in an attempt to be, as he put it, outrageous, and to end the argument by making them hate him,
He goes too far.
he uses racial slurs to describe James Brown and Ray Charles.
We need to be very clear here. The words he used were horrific. But we also need to report what the sources say about his intent.
Right.
Costello has always maintained that those words were the exact opposite of what he actually felt. He claimed he was just saying the most offensive thing he could think of to trigger a reaction.
That is his account, and it's supported by his history of working with Rock Against Racism before the incident. But words have power, regardless of intent. The press picked up the story weeks later.
And the fallout was catastrophic.
It was a nuclear bomb for his career in America. He went from being the cool, righteous rebel to a pariah. His records were pulled from radio playlists. He received death threats.
He had to do a press conference.
He had to hold a press conference where he apologized, calling the remarks obnoxious and offensive. But the stain remained for a long time.
And this brings us back to the why we talked about earlier. Why did he change his sound so drastically in 1980? You can draw a straight line from that Holiday Inn bar to his next album.
You absolutely can. The angry young man persona was dead. It had eaten itself. He couldn't play that character anymore.
So he pivots.
He pivots hard. He releases Get Happy in 1980.
Which is a soul and R&B record. A complete left turn.
It's 20 tracks of Stax-influenced, Motown-influenced music. It was a complete departure. It was almost an act of musical penance.
An apology through music.
You could see it that way. He was engaging deeply and respectfully with the very music, Black American music, that he had insulted in that drunken stupor.
And the sheer density of that album. 20 songs on a single vinyl LP. How did that even work?
It was crammed. The grooves on the vinyl were so close together, you had to turn the volume up on your stereo to hear it properly. It was frantic, soulful, and brilliant.
And he doesn't stop shifting. Trust in 1981 and then Imperial Bedroom in 1982. Imperial Bedroom is often called his masterpiece.
It's the moment he stops being a punk and becomes a composer. It was produced by Jeff Emmerich,
The Beatles engineer, the guy who did Straight Pepper.
That's the one. Costello wanted to use the studio as an instrument. The production is complex, layered.
What kind of things was he doing?
Accordions, harpsichords, intricate vocal harmonies. They call it Baroque pop. It's miles away from the three-chord aggression of My Aim is True. He was proving he had the vocabulary of a classical composer, not just a pub rocker.
This brings us to the segment of his career where he becomes the chameleon. I feel like in the 80s and 90s, if you bought an Elvis Costello album, you were playing a game of roulette.
You had no idea what genre you were going to get.
Yeah.
And nothing illustrates that better than Almost Blue in 1981.
The country album.
The country album. Recorded in Nashville, an album of covers. George Jones, Merle Haggard. And remember, this is a UK new wave guy.
The reception was expected to be so hostile that the UK pressing actually had a warning label on the cover.
I love this detail. What did the label say?
It read, "Warning. This album contains country and Western music and may cause a reaction in narrow-minded listeners."
That is brilliant marketing. It's a challenge to the fan. If you don't like this, you're the problem.
And it produced a genuine hit. Good year for the Roses. It showed he had the voice for it. He wasn't mocking the genre. He revered it.
He treated it with total seriousness.
He did. And then, swinging wildly to the other side of the spectrum, he starts working with Paul McCartney in the late 80s.
This was a massive partnership. Two of the greatest pop songwriters of their generations.
They wrote songs together knee to knee, just like Lennon and McCartney used to do. This resulted in Veronica, which became Costello's biggest U.S. hit, reaching number 19 on Billboard.
Veronica is such a catchy song. incredibly poppy, but again, the subject matter.
It's devastating. It's about his grandmother suffering from dementia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She's sitting in a chair, flickering in and out of reality. Is it all in that pretty little head of yours?
Classic Costello, a buoyant, McCartney-esque melody with lyrics about the disintegration of memory.
And McCartney brought the melodic brightness that Costello sometimes resisted. It was a perfect balance.
But he didn't stop at pop or country. In the 90s, he takes a hard left turn into a world that most rock stars fail miserably at. Classical.
The Juliet Letters in 1993. He teamed up with the Brodsky Quartet.
So no rock band at all.
No guitars, no drums, just Costello's voice and a string quartet.
I remember when this came out, people were confused. They thought it was pretentious.
Some did. But if you listen to it, it's not a rock star trying to write Mozart. It's a collection of songs written as imaginary letters. It's theatrical.
It's more like a song cycle.
Exactly. It showed that he could write for instruments other than a rock band. It was about textures.
And that paved the way for perhaps his most surprising collaboration. Painted from Memory with Burt Bacharach in 1998.
Now, on paper, this shouldn't work. Elvis Costello, the revenge and guilt guy, and Burt Bacharach, the king of easy listening, the guy who wrote What's New Pussycat.
And raindrops keep falling on my head. It sounds like oil and water.
But if you look deeper, it makes perfect sense. Costello always loved complex melodies. Bacharach is the master of complex melodies and tricky time signatures.
His songs are incredibly hard to sing.
Notoriously difficult because the rhythms shift constantly. It wasn't irony. Costello genuinely loved Bacharach's craft.
And that album is heartbreakingly beautiful.
It is. Listen to God Give Me Strength. It starts with this slow, mournful horn line. Costello's voice is fragile, almost cracking. He's not shouting anymore. He's pleading.
It's a performance that the angry young man of 1977 couldn't have given.
No way. It is a vocal performance that Declan MacManus, the bank clerk, probably couldn't have imagined he'd ever deliver.
It really highlights the range. From Radio to God Give Me Strength, it's the same guy, but a different lifetime.
And while he's doing all this music, he's also writing. And I don't mean lyrics, I mean prose.
The liner notes for the reissues.
Oh, yes. When Disc and later Rhino reissued his albums, Costello wrote extensive essays for each one. We're talking over 60,000 words total.
That's a whole book.
Basically a memoir in installments.
And they aren't just, we recorded this in London. They're critical essays.
They're brutally honest. He critiques his own singing. He critiques the production. He famously wrote about the reissue of Goodbye, Cruel World. Congratulations, you've just purchased our worst album.
That is a level of self-awareness you rarely see in a narcissist-heavy industry.
It showed that he engaged with his own work not as a star, but as a critic. He could step outside himself and say, that didn't work.
Moving into the 2000s, he settles into this role of the elder statesman. But he doesn't slow down, and his personal life takes a very public, very romantic turn.
He met Diana Krall, the jazz pianist and singer, at the Grammys in 2002. They married in 2003 at Elton John's estate.
Which is a flex.
A significant flex. But it also sparked a creative period. He released North in 2003, which is an album of piano ballads.
And about their relationship.
It's incredibly intimate music about falling in love with her and the end of his previous marriage. Very raw.
And he also took that musicologist brain of his to television with the show Spectacle.
Spectacle. Elvis Costello, this ran from 2008 to 2010. It was a talk show, but it was unique.
It wasn't a typical talk show at all.
He would sit down with Bruce Springsteen, Tony Bennett, Lou Reed, Smokey Robinson, and they wouldn't talk about their new movie or gossip. They would pick up guitars and talk about songwriting.
It was like a master class, the best music class you could ever take.
It showcased just how deep his knowledge went. He could analyze a chord progression with Paul Simon or discuss vocal phrasing with Tony Bennett. It proved he was a student of the game, first and foremost.
But just when you think he's settling into the tuxedo-wearing host role, he pivots again. He teams up with The Roots.
Wise Up Ghost in 2013, a funk and hip-hop collaboration.
This one really surprised me. The Roots are the best band in late-night TV hip-hop legends. How did that even come about?
They connected through Jimmy Fallon's show, and Costello fit right in. The textures were gritty, the grooves were deep.
And his lyrics worked over those beats.
His lyrical density, that staccato style we talked about from his computer operator days, fit perfectly over that tight, snapping hip-hop production.
We have to touch on the recent years, because he had a bit of a scare in 2018.
He did. He had to cancel tour dates due to surgery for a cancerous growth. It was a reminder of mortality, but he recovered, and typically he went right back to work.
And the work has been interesting. Spanish Model in 2021, What was that project?
This is a fascinating concept. He took the original instrumental master tapes from 1978's This Year's model, so the attractions playing at their absolute peak,
For raw tapes.
the raw tapes, and he stripped his own vocals off. Then he had Spanish-speaking artists like Juanes and Luis Fonsi record the lyrics translated into Spanish.
That is such a cool idea. It's like
Yeah.
remixing history.
It recontextualizes the songs completely.
Right.
It proves that the melody and the energy transcends the language.
It's the same rage, just in a different tongue.
Exactly. And then in 2022, he releases The Boy Named If, which is just a raucous rock album, and reunites with Alan Mays, his partner from his first band, Rusty for the Resurrection of Rust.
Full circle.
Completely full circle.
So let's bring this all together. We've gone from the mainframe computer room to the Order of the British Empire. We've gone from punk to country to classical to hip-hop. What does this all mean?
I think the key lies in that origin story we discussed. The Costello identity started as a mask. It was a marketing tool, a shock tactic.
It was a character.
It was a character. But because Declan MacManus viewed music as a job, a discipline, thanks to his father, that mask became a vessel.
A vessel that could hold anything.
Exactly. He wasn't precious about the brand of Elvis Costello. If the brand was supposed to be angry punk, he didn't care. If he wanted to do a jazz record, he did it. Because to him, the work is the point.
It comes back to the work ethic.
Writing hundreds of songs, writing journalism, touring constantly. He treats it like a trade. You show up, you do the work, you learn the song, just like his dad learned the Beatles hits for the radio.
There's a provocative thought in the title of his memoir, Unfaithful Music.
Yes, he has been unfaithful to genres. He abandons them constantly.
Nice on them.
He cheats on new wave with country. He cheats on rock with classical. But that lack of loyalty to a single sound, that is the very thing that has allowed him to survive for 5 decades.
If he had stayed the angry young man in the skinny tie.
He would have become a nostalgia act by 1985. He would be playing the State Fair circuit, playing Allison over and over again. By being unfaithful to the genre, he remained faithful to his own creativity.
Instead of a nostalgia act, he became a legend. So here's our challenge to you, the listener. If you want to hear the impossible range of the man born Declan MacManus, do this. Go listen to God Give Me Strength, his collaboration with Burt Bacharach. Listen to the fragility and the control in that voice, and then immediately play Radio.
The Whiplash will tell you everything you need to know.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and keep unpacking the music.
Until next time.